Let's talk about Coach Tomlin and the Steelers and what is next for this organization and the future of Coach Tomlin with this organization. Coach Tomlin will be back. He's going to finish out his contract with the Steelers unless he decides to step down or just completely retire. I don't see that happening anytime soon. Not only will Coach Tomlin be back, Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, he will be back. And Coach Austin, the defensive coordinator, he will also be back. The Steelers have to go out there and finally prioritize offense in this offseason. Now, last offseason, they did go heavy in the NFL draft with the offense. They drafted Roman Wilson, and you saw them draft offensive linemen, Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, Troy Fautanu. Unfortunately, Troy Fautanu got injured early in the year. In a practice, he dislocated his knee. But in the couple snaps he played, he did look solid. Zach Frazier is a very good starting center with the Steelers. He will continue to get better over the course of his career. Mason McCormick was not ready to be a starting guard in this league just yet. The only reason why he was a starting guard is because James Daniels, he went down with a torn Achilles injury. And do they want to bring him back? Because before James Daniels went down, he was a top guard to have in the NFL. So they have already prioritized the offensive line over the last 2 to 3 years. You still have Broderick Jones, who is on his rookie deal. So far, Broderick Jones has not looked good in his career. You can play him back at his natural position that he played at Georgia, at the actual tackle position that he played. Right now, when I look at Broderick Jones, even though he is not a good player, he is not a true right tackle. He is better at the left tackle position. Unfortunately, Coach Tomlin and the offensive coaches feel like he is better at right tackle. When he played with Georgia, he was a left tackle, put him back on that side of the field. And when I look at it from the situation, Broderick Jones also got benched this season. He got benched because of the penalties and the fact that he was such a bad tackle. So be on the lookout for that next season. So the offensive line, they could put more money into this. They can invest more players. But right now you have a lot of young players. Let them develop with the offensive line coaches, and let's see what you have with this core. But other than the offensive line, the biggest elephant in the room with this organization is who will the quarterback be long term? Russell Wilson or Justin Fields? Justin Fields was the starter to begin this season. Now, I want to go out here and add context to this. Justin Fields was not supposed to be the starter. It was going to be Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson hurt his calf in practice, and he had to miss pretty much the first half of the season. The first time that we got to see Russell Wilson go out there and play, it was against the New York Jets. And we got to see Justin Fields for 6 games be the starter. He was 4-2 on the season. He had 5 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and he had 5 rushing touchdowns. When you look at Russell Wilson, he finished off the season. He went 6-5, 16 passing touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Now, on the surface, you will say, hey, go with Justin Fields. He's a younger player. He has more potential. And you have heard this over and over again with Justin Fields in the past with the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears have not been able to get the quarterback position right just yet. So Justin Fields went into a completely terrible situation. But at the same time, when you always speak potential, he has potential. Eventually, it's either you hit your potential or you don't. The Steelers are in a very scary situation because when I look at Russell Wilson, he is an older player. He's not going to stick around for the next 3 to 4 years and play at this level. And even though he has taken a massive step back, he's not the same Russell Wilson that he was with the Seattle Seahawks. He is still solid enough. You made the NFL playoffs with him. And he was not the sole reason to why you lost that playoff game against the Baltimore Ravens. Your defense could not stop the run, and your wide receivers were just not good enough, and the offensive line was abysmal on that day. And the offensive line took a major step back for the last 6 games of the regular season. But you look at Justin Fields, he gives you more ability with his legs. You can add that into the fold. Russell Wilson still has mobility, but he's not the same player with that speed that he once was. You look at Justin Fields, he can move from sideline to sideline. He can move inside and outside the pocket. Both of these players have similar flaws. They hold on to the football for too long. Now, Justin Fields did play better this year with Arthur Smith at times than he ever did with the Chicago Bears. He was letting the football go out quicker, and he was able to just throw the football away. He was living to see another play. Will he go out there and have his reckless moments? Yes, he will. Is he as polished of a passer as Russell Wilson? No, but he's more athletic at this position. The only problem is this. Athleticism doesn't always mean that you're going to be the better quarterback moving forward. But when you look at Russell Wilson, he can still give you those big plays down the field with that moon ball. And that was a special connection with George Pickens until he got injured and until NFL defenses figured out how to stop that play. You saw splash plays with Russell Wilson down the field with his arm. You saw splash plays with Justin Fields with his legs. In my opinion, either quarterback will help you out long term. They're a step up over Kenny Pickett. They're a step up over Mason Rudolph. But if you want to have a long-term answer due to age, Justin Fields is going to be your guy. But if you are trying to win right now and you're trying to maximize this window with Cameron Hayward and TJ Watt and all those pieces, granted, you just lost in the playoffs with Russell Wilson, but he was 20 of 29 on the day. You may want to sign that veteran Russell Wilson and hope that he can be your guy for the next 2 to 3 years. Hopefully. And another problem with Coach Tomlin, he has never had to develop a quarterback. Big Ben was already here when they hired him to be the head coach. Big Ben was a Bill Cowher guy. Bill Cowher helped develop Big Ben and majority of those players that won the Super Bowl with Coach Tomlin. So far, he hasn't been able to develop a quarterback. He wasn't able to develop Mason Rudolph. He wasn't able to develop Kenny Pickett. You look at Justin Fields. Can you develop him to the next level? Because there's still talent there. It's just untapped. Either quarterback you go with, you should be fine, but you need to elevate the rest of the offense. So I'm going to leave it to you guys in the comment section below. Who would you rather go with, Russell Wilson or Justin Fields? I'm going to say this. No matter who your quarterback is, you have to elevate the pieces around them. Now let's talk about Najee Harris. Najee Harris, he's scheduled to be a free agent. They declined his fifth-year option, similar to what they did with Justin Fields. To look back at it, maybe they should have exercised the fifth-year option with Justin Fields. When I look at the situation with Najee Harris is not a bad running back. Every single year in his career, he has put up over 1,000 rushing yards. But this is a problem. They give him the football a lot. The rushing efficiency is not there. They force feed Najee Harris. He had the seventh most carries this season with 263, but he only had 1,043 rushing yards. That was the 14th most in the NFL. And he only had 6 rushing touchdowns. He averaged 4 yards a carry. Najee Harris was selected in the first round many years ago. They were trying to maximize the window with Big Ben. I'm not saying that Najee Harris is a scrub. I do believe that they should move off of Najee Harris. You can get more productivity from a running back in this draft class that can be cheaper and mix him in with Jaylen Warren. Will Najee Harris have his good moments? Yes. But just because he puts up over 1,000 yards every single season does not mean that he's a good running back. I believe it'll be one of these situations to where Najee Harris goes somewhere else and he may have a better outlook in terms of going out there and being more dominant with another team that has more skill position help around him than the Steelers. Because right now, the offensive line, they still have their up and down moments. The wide receiving core, they need a lot of help. So they'll just stack the box with Najee Harris, and it's hard for him to already get out the backfield because he doesn't have the gear to hit that top level coming out of the backfield. He's more so of a power back. So if you let him go to a different team, he may have more success with that organization, and the Steelers can save a lot of money by going running back by committee with Jaylen Warren and with another running back. And Jaylen Warren, you're not going to give him the football 15 to 20 times a game. That's not his game. He could come in and he could give you very good production on second and third down. 511 rushing yards on 120 carries, 1 rushing touchdown. He averaged 4.3 yards a carry. Bringing in a cheaper option next to Jaylen Warren, that will help you out and will help you also go out there and make a decision at the quarterback position. Because I would imagine that Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, neither one of these guys are going to get paid top 15 quarterback money. But it's very weird. You never know with the quarterback market. So the Steelers need to save every single cent that they can right now. So letting Najee Harris walk away would not be the end of the world. And at the end of the day, since you've had Najee Harris, he hasn't been that complete game changer either coming out of the backfield. When I look at the wide receiving position, in free agency or in the NFL draft, maybe both, you have to go out there and bring in some more talent. You have George Pickens. George Pickens is phenomenal. He has top 5 wide receiver talent in the NFL. This is the problem with George Pickens. He stands in his own way. The immaturity issues are still a major problem with him. Now, we saw this at Georgia. This was a man that many people had going in the first round, but he slid out of the first round due to the fact that he did have a torn ACL early in his career in college with Georgia. And it was because of the maturity issues on and off the field. George Pickens has to get out of his own way. But I'm afraid that he may never do that. Look at the Steelers' track record over the last few years. Juju Smith-Schuster with TikTok, Chase Claypool with questioning Coach Tomlin and having his deals on the field and not being focused. When they're trying to rush and hurry up the offense, he's celebrating against the Minnesota Vikings a few years ago. Antonio Brown went off the deep end. I don't know if Coach Tomlin can manage his kid's personality. But you can't do without him right now because he's by far the best wide receiver that you have. You can make the case that he's their best offensive player. He has all-world talent. And when he missed those 3 games dealing with a hamstring injury, you saw how impactful he was. Now, granted, he had a terrible game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Don't get me wrong. He's not a perfect wide receiver. But he has the talents to go out there and to be a top option every single week. But he needs help. And if you want to move off of George Pickens long term, you have to bring in someone else anyway. I thought that Calvin Austin III took a major step up this season. He's not a true number 2 wide receiver just yet. He will still be suited as a very good number 3 wide receiver. He did have 548 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns, and he averaged 15 yards a catch. He's one of those guys that can go down there, be a great deep threat for you, and he can kill you underneath. He will be a very good slot wide receiver, and I think that's his true position. Just keep him inside the slot, but you need to bring in another big body wide receiver on the outside to match up with George Pickens. Luckily for the Steelers, this is a very good wide receiving class in the NFL draft. And before you come to the comment section, I don't see the Steelers going out there and paying a lot of money to a guy like T. Higgins. That would be great, but that's not the Steeler way. The biggest free agency signing that they made last season was with Patrick Queen. And that's because they really need a middle linebacker. But when you look at the Steelers, historically, they don't go into free agency. They don't spend a lot of money. They like to draft their own guys, and they like to go out there and pay them when it's time to go out there and give them contract extensions. And by the way, I do believe that they will extend George Pickens, but I would be cautious with that move. When I look at the wide receivers, Emeka Egbuka, I think that he could be a very good wide receiver. He is a wide receiver from Ohio State. You have Isaiah Bond from Texas. He's more so a similar wide receiver in stature to a guy like Calvin Austin III. Then you have Matthew Golden. I think that you can bring in Matthew Golden with the 21st pick. Even if you get help in free agency, still bring in a wide receiver in the NFL draft. And the one thing the Steelers have done a great job of historically is going out there and finding diamonds in the rough in the NFL draft when it comes to the wide receiving position. And I don't want you guys to forget this. They did select Roman Wilson in last year's draft class. He missed his entire rookie season due to a hamstring injury and due to an ankle injury. Basically the same thing that Coach Tomlin did with Calvin Austin. He didn't let him play his rookie year. He's basically did the same thing with Roman Wilson, but I don't know if Roman Wilson is going to be a top threat with the Steelers. He could be. He has that potential, but let's go out there and bring in some more wide receiving help for either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. That's one of the biggest problems with the Steelers right now. They don't have enough firepower on the outside. This was an organization many years ago. They had Martavius Bryant, Juju Smith-Schuster, Antonio Brown. They were loaded at the wide receiving position. And this year you had George Pickens. That's great. You had Calvin Austin III. That's solid. Then you had Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson is better off as a number 4 or a number 5 wide receiver. You don't want him being your true number 2 on the outside next to George Pickens. And they had to make a trade to bring in Mike Williams. He's not the same Mike Williams that he was with the Los Angeles Chargers. Due to the back injury, due to the torn ACL, he's not going to be that same impactful player moving down the field. He showed you moments of that this season, and he did have a great play against the Washington Commanders that gave the Steelers a lead and helped them win that football game. But at the same time, Mike Williams is not going to scare opposing defenses. And before I go to the defense here, there is a connection with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. If Russell Wilson wants to get paid a lot of money, you move off of Russell Wilson. You let him go to the Las Vegas Raiders. You stick with Justin Fields. If you want to go younger and you want more long-term value out of that quarterback position, you go with Justin Fields. But if you want to maximize the veterans that you have, you go with Russell Wilson. And I will say this. There were a lot of reports that were coming out that Arthur Smith was not on the same page with Russell Wilson. They had a lot of arguments behind the scenes. It is what it is. They still made the playoffs with both of those guys, quote unquote, arguing. Russell Wilson came out and he said that he'd love to work with Arthur Smith. We'll see. I do believe that right now the Steelers are leaning more towards Justin Fields than Russell Wilson because of how things ended. But like I mentioned before, I'm not going to come on here and place all that blame on Russell Wilson with how the season ended in a downward spiral. A lot of that is on Coach Tomlin. A lot of that is on Arthur Smith and the offensive line not playing well, and also the fact that Russell Wilson did not play well either. Everyone deserves blame. And that interception against the Kansas City Chiefs, I have to walk back that statement. I said that Russell Wilson was throwing a risky ball into double coverage to Pat, and he was. But George Pickens stopped running his route because Trent McDuffie pressed him out of bounds. That's one of those situations where I look at with George Pickens. You have to be better. You can't mentally check out on the game. That cost the Steelers points. You could have walked away with a field goal or a touchdown, but you didn't. It was still a bad read by Russell Wilson. I do understand if George Pickens goes out there, he completely runs his route. Maybe it's a different situation. But regardless, the safety was going to rotate over on Big Pat. They've seen that look before. Russell Wilson has targeted him in the red zone with a similar play. And he still did not throw a good ball to Big Pat in that situation. Now over to the defense. The defense here, I am concerned because they're getting older. Minka is still a very good safety. He doesn't have the same playmaking abilities because quarterbacks aren't throwing his way. So I mean, that's a good thing. In some ways, you could say that's a good thing with Minka Fitzpatrick. He had the one interception against the Baltimore Ravens. He will still go out there. He will steal a ball. I still have him rated at the top safety this season with all the good things that he was able to do. But this is a guy that has missed time in the past due to injuries, and he is getting older. But he is still one of their best defensive players that they would love to hang on to. TJ Watt is getting older, and he had a down year this year. And I know it's crazy to say that TJ Watt had a down year. When you look at his numbers were not bad. But these are down numbers for a guy like TJ Watt. He had 11 and a half sacks. We're usually used to TJ Watt having 15 sacks on the season. Once again, not bad numbers, but it's a down year for him. He did have 6 forced fumbles. That was the first in the NFL, and he is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Cameron Hayward, he's on the wrong side of 30. He is still an impactful player in the middle of this defense in terms of stopping the run and getting to the quarterback, but how much longer will he play? You do have Keanu Benton, who is waiting in the wings, but can he come in and give you the same production as a Cameron Hayward when he decides to retire? We will see. But you have TJ Watt, you have Alex Highsmith. Highsmith missed a lot of time this season. I like Alex Highsmith. He has 6 sacks on the year, 1 forced fumble. He needs to stay healthier. That's it. He just needs to stay healthy on the field. Just a few years ago, he led the Steelers in sacks when TJ Watt went down with the pec injury. You have 2 bookend pass rushers. Not too many teams in this league have 2 amazing pass rushers coming off the left and the right side of the field. Middle linebacker position. Peyton Wilson showed a lot of upside, a lot of good moments. And you have Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen had an up and down year. He was consistent at the beginning portion of the season. Then as the season started to unravel, everything went to hell for Patrick Queen. You could bring in some more interior linebacking help. You do have Cole Holcomb, who is now still with this roster, but this is the problem with Cole Holcomb. He missed this entire season because of a knee injury that he suffered against the Tennessee Titans. I would be in favor of the Steelers moving off of Cole Holcomb and not bringing him back. They want to bring him back as a rotational middle linebacker, but let him go elsewhere. You can find another linebacker in free agency or a guy in the NFL draft that you can match up behind a Landon Roberts, Patrick Queen, and Peyton Wilson and let him develop at the linebacker position. And speaking of a Landon Roberts, he was their best run-stopping linebacker. On third down, he was always there with the crucial tackles. He was always able to make plays in space. Not the best in pass coverage, but against stopping the run, he's your guy. The cornerback position, Joey Porter Jr. He's your number 1 corner. Joey Porter Jr. is a solid cornerback when he is not holding. Penalties are going to hurt him in the foreseeable future until he figures that out. We saw this against the Cincinnati Bengals in the first matchup. He has so many penalties in that game. You can't have those type of moments. Not a bad player, but just too handsy at the line of scrimmage. And you have Dante Jackson at the cornerback position playing alongside Joey Porter Jr. I believe that he's solid enough to keep around, and you can give him a contract extension also. He had a lot of interceptions this season. The defense kept this team in games. Beginning portion of the year and on the back portion of the year. 5 interceptions on the year for Dante Jackson and also 8 pass deflections. They can still get better on the defensive side of the ball. The way they got pushed around by the Baltimore Ravens should never happen. They should go into the NFL draft and look to drafting some more defensive linemen in the 2nd or 3rd round. Make wide receiver your number 1 priority. Bring in some depth pieces in free agency. This is one of the situations with the Steelers. You have very good defensive players. At your base, you're going to be okay. But you don't want to get pushed around by the Baltimore Ravens like how you did just a couple weeks ago. So get bigger up front. But this should be an offensive-driven, free agency an offensive-driven NFL draft class. This should be an offensive-driven offseason for the Steelers. Re-sign George Pickens. Be cautious with that contract, and hopefully he doesn't crash out. They call him NFL Youngboy, similar to the NBA Youngboy moniker. I hate the moniker for George Pickens. He's leaning to that name. He's too much of a crash out on the field. But they need to go out there and come in with a brand new offensive philosophy. The days of run the football and let's stop the run, it can still hold up. But let's get away from that. Look at Kyle Shanahan with the San Francisco 49ers. Look at the Green Bay Packers and Coach LaFleur. They love to run the football, but they're able to pass the ball down the field. The Steelers have not had a good passing attack since Big Ben hurt his elbow against the Seattle Seahawks many years ago. Since then, this has been a terrible offense with passing. We have seen them with bad quarterbacks, yes, but Big Ben, in his last year, he's played better than Mitch Trubisky. He's played better than Kenny Pickett, and he was more consistent with that deep ball than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. They made the NFL playoffs with Big Ben in his last year with the Steelers. This is a coaching problem that they have. I can touch on that, but I touched on that 2 weeks ago with Coach Tomlin. They need to go out there and bring in as much offensive talent as possible. The days leaning on your defense and hoping that your front seven can go out there and save you with turnovers, you can depend on your defense to a certain extent. You don't want your defense to go out there and get driven into the ground like how they did against the Baltimore Ravens. But your defense can only do so much. When they're holding the opposing team to under 20 points, you have to find a way to go out there and win those football games. No matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. And I really hated the way that Arthur Smith treated Justin Fields. He treated him as a game manager. You have to be able to take those shots down the field to George Pickens. Take the shots down the field to Calvin Austin III. A lot of things can be true. The Steelers' offense was not good because of coaching, but it also was not good because of the lack of talent. Bring in some more wide receivers. Bring in another running back to replace when Najee Harris leaves. Hopefully that running back that you get can have more burst coming out of the backfield than Najee Harris. And I'm really not trying to come off like I hate Najee Harris. I do believe that he can find success, similar like how James Conner has with the Arizona Cardinals. He's found a lot of success with the Cardinals since he walked away from the Steelers. And it's the reason why they declined that fifth-year option with Najee Harris. Obviously, I'm not the only one that feels that way. Khan, the general manager, he feels that way, and the same with Coach Tomlin. Because they really wanted him to stick around for a couple more years, they would have exercised that fifth-year option. And just because you have 1,000 yards every single year in your career, that's impressive. That's an impressive number to look at on the surface. But when you take a deeper look, since the season has expanded, 1,000 yards, it's not that much. You need to go out there and at least have 1,200, 1,300 yards a game. 1,300 yards a season, pardon me. Now we're talking about something. Now we're talking about you being a top running back in the league. But having the 7th most carries and the 14th most rushing yards, that's not going to get it done. But the offense has to be the main priority this offseason for the Steelers. Figure it out. You look at your division right now. The Cincinnati Bengals, they have the top offense. Granted, they missed the playoffs. They defeat the Steelers in the second matchup. The Baltimore Ravens, they have a very good offense with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, because they have prioritized their offense. The Steelers, they have not done that. And that's the Coach Tomlin philosophy. Let's go run the football. Let's be aggressive. And let's hope our defense keeps the game close. We win by 1 score. We win because of special teams. We win because of defense. And our offense just has to do enough. No, you don't have to go out there and average 30 points a game. But your offense needs to be better. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Steelers and what should they do moving forward? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for watching the video, guys. God bless.